So here we go again, second part of the Vipassana teaching. We are now entering the second part of the chapter, which is the way to generate the view for Vipassana to arise. Page 66 following. And again, I prefer in this chapter to give you an overview of the issues dealt with, rather than following the exact pages and titles. So, our wish is to develop the view, the enlightened perspective of absence of self, absence of concrete, static entities. And we use for this the processes of reasoning, logic, and deep observation in order to undermine the belief in the existence of a self, of a self-entity. In the individual, the perceiving subject, the mind, the soul, or in the perceived objects, the so-called phenomena, the experiences. This is the aim, to refute the self-entity of persons and the self-entity of phenomena. These two are the classical aims. An-Atman, no self. Self here means something identifiable with characteristics that is individual, that is typical for that entity and is lasting, is stable. So we have the idea that when I see you, I think, it's her, I give you a name. And then with that name connects a feeling of same one as yesterday, same one as the one I already knew so many years ago, 10 years ago, and so on. Yes, like this. So the idea of a self in the other person and a self in me is, me. When I was in the kindergarten, what happened to me? And then now, with 60 years of age, I talk about the me in the kindergarten who experienced something and I identify with it. And that's called identification with the self, believing that there is something stable which is individual. And it's the same with all the objects. Outer objects, we think they are stable, ignoring that they are also process. And this becomes obvious when the conditions change. When pressure conditions changes, when things are being crushed due to increased pressures, they can be pulverized in a second. When fire, the temperature changes, things can be burned. Everything starts burning at a certain point. There's nothing which can resist fire. When the objects are put into water, they disintegrate over time. And just time. Actually, because all so-called objects are actually subatomic particles which can never be localized in constant movement, and they're made out of these subatomic particles into atoms and molecules and structures and so on, and all of that is moving. So you just need to leave a so-called stable object to itself. Because of its inherent process, it will disintegrate at a certain point in time. Just wait long enough. Everything is dynamic. And this fact that everything is dynamic and that never a thing, something existed in the first place that would be stable even for the second. This is the aim of the Dharma, because this ignorance, this lack of awareness that we live in a completely interdependent, changing universe where nothing is stable, this lack of awareness is the cause of suffering. We are not in a kind of purely scientific investigation into the nature of mind because we like to do this research. The idea of Vipaśyanā practice is to reduce the friction. Friction. I have this idea about reality, but reality is different, so there is friction. My ideas of reality and reality don't coincide, so we have bumps and it's difficult, and I'm surprised by, again someone died, but yesterday he was alive. But if I know the nature of life, I'm not surprised that a person is dead the next day. It can happen to any one of us. So all these surprises, seeing that something which I loved so much and which had no scratches yesterday has a scratch today. It's like, that's nature of reality. That I am the great me, that I'm such a poor me today in a certain discussion because I'm triggered. All these ideas of self, just whenever there is conflict with reality, when our idea of reality does not correspond to how it really is, then there's friction, there's tension. And this is the origin of all dukkha, of all stress. So insight meditation is a specific way of taking out the erroneous beliefs, not creating new ones, to enter into a clear seeing of just how it is, a cleared experience. Not creating another opinion or view of how it should be, but being in the flow of the experience without clinging, attachment, and aversion, fighting. That's what is called peace. That's nirvana. The belief in solidly existing entities, in people and in phenomena, in objects, are the two crucial points. In phenomena also we include the belief in concepts. I'll give you a famous one. For example, we could be partners and I would tell to you, we have a relationship problem. Our relationship is not going well. We have the idea of relationship. The relationship has no existence. It's a concept about how we relate. And this relationship is now sick. We have to heal our relationship. You see how far we go, and it's a very common way of talking. So a concept is invested with attributes of a person. Our relationship is suffering. We hear things like that. We have to take care of it. And all of this, we start believing in it. It could be skillful ways to communicate, but can also lead us very far away from what is actually going on. So this is also called a phenomenon. A concept is a phenomenon of thinking. So to invest phenomena with a self-entity is to make them solid, more solid than what they truly are. This is the big thing to do. Subject-object investigating the two. What is actually there? That we call subject, that we call object. This includes, it's important to say, a so-called phenomenon, an object, is also within my own psyche, within my own mind, me and my anger. I love, me and my love, me and my despair. So within one's own mind, I and the hand, I and my hand, I and the hand which I see, I and my ideas. We have the split, not only subject, object, inside, outside. Within the person, we have multiple splits with everything that is not called I. And that creates a lot of tension because I am in conflict with my emotions. I am in conflict with this. I want to be a different one, and so on. You see, that stress is called samsara. This is what it is. This is the substance of it. This is what it is made of. Now, in order to take that apart, we explore our belief systems. Not any belief systems, but the beliefs in existence, the belief that I exist, that this world exists. It's the first thing. Existence means something is born, it exists at least for some time, and then it might die. But it has to be in place, it has to be there as a definable entity for at least a very short time. And then by exploring existence, the belief in the existence of an emotion, of someone having an emotion, existence of an idea, then we explore all of that and it becomes obvious in meditation, wow, all of this is fluctuating. Nothing can be found to be lasting. It has to be recreated. An idea, for example, has to be recreated all the time. The idea of a self is not there and stable. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's gone, sometimes it's stronger, sometimes it's weaker. It's a dynamic process. We begin to see all of these things. And our belief in existence crumbles. We come to the conviction that nothing exists. Which is true in a way. Nothing exists as a stable entity, different and independent of the rest. That would be the normal definition of existence. Yes, that's true. But what we do in our approach is we fall into the belief in non-existence. Nothing exists. Everything is non-existent. Actually, what we struggle with is that we believe in non-existence, that there's no true existence, and we make non-existence out of it, but we cannot deny that we feel something, that we live experiences, and that you are there, and that you are there, and that you have an influence on me, and that everything has an influence on each other, so the world is there. So then we try to correct the belief in non-existence, and we say, well, it exists and does not exist at the same time. Both together. You are there, but actually you are not there. But this is a contradiction. How can something exist and not exist at the same time? It cannot be, the contrary cannot be possible at any given time. We have already seen that you or me or the table do not truly exist. We cannot find an unchanging moment of existence where the individual nature of a table or a tillman or anyone else would exist. So the idea of existence has been proven wrong. But since I can knock on the table, and since tillman occupies space, I have to admit that non-existence can also be proven wrong, because actually there is something there. So I think both are true, but then I correct myself and say, no, neither existing nor non-existing. Because the first one is not true and the second one is not true. But what am I saying? You are not existing and not non-existing. That's what I'm saying. So I'm saying nothing, actually. And this is called the tetralem, the 4 explorations, questions, which Nagarjuna laid open, and they have become the basis of Vipaśyanā practice, of insight meditation. To see how we fall into affirming existence, affirming non-existence, affirming the two at the same time, or affirming neither nor. Actually, the last one is completely unlogical. It's just 2 negations. We are not stating anything about reality. We are just stating that the first concept does not apply and the second concept does not apply. But what is reality? And the whole problem of the meditator who's going through these processes in the course of years is that he wants to have an opinion about reality. Our problem is we want to affirm something. We want to have a view. We want to say reality is like that. And that's the problem. The one saying reality is like that. It is like that. I am like that. The world is like that. This is the problem. So the big issue for the meditator is to live experience, to live this, you can say, this ungraspable experience of now without entering any need of positioning oneself, labeling the rest, describing the rest, just living the experience fully without any attempt of defining what we are living. Yet being fully aware. We are not like, not like out in space, and we are fully aware, all senses open, and the impulse to create a center of the experience, an artificial center of the world, and then define all the rest as different, this impulse does not arise anymore. And that's the solution to the tetralem, that's the awakened view, that one does not fall into any view anymore. That's why the Buddha called views a root klesha, a root affliction. Any view creates stress, because reality does not adapt to the view. The view necessarily cannot cover ungraspable reality and will necessarily be in conflict. Okay, that's another way of approaching insight meditation, insight practice. And in order to explore that, a sequence is hinted in shortly here. Actually, the text in this chapter only talks about all appearances being mind. So That's very important, and if one understands that fully, one has understood everything. But the sequence, the famous Mahamudra sequence, which is explained later in the book, goes further. We look into experience, and yes, we understand all experience, all phenomena are mind. Visual objects, all objects of hearing, all objects of thinking, of whatever I perceive in the body, everything is an experience of mind, in mind. Actually, that's mind. Mind is experience, is consciousness. And that mind, then we continue, is explored, cannot be found, cannot be grasped, is not an entity, escapes the definitions of existence, non-existence, both or neither. So mind is seen as ungraspable, as empty of self-nature. And in this emptiness, in that empty mind, all appearances arise. Life experience being ungraspable makes it possible that all experiences can arise without obstructing each other. And they dissolve by themselves. All these experiences have no substance, they are self-liberating. So this is the full sequence of the discovery of Vipaśyanā, of insight practice, when we understand that all appearances are mind and that mind cannot be found. It's an idea. The word mind is an idea describing life, the phenomenon of being aware, of feeling, of living. In order to get there, the process of Vipaśyanā practice uses also pointing out instructions. To some extent, I was just doing that. You find those pointing out instructions as pointers, for example, to the mind that no one can find. And we contemplate that. And this contemplation means we direct our awareness in that area where we thought a self would exist, a mind could be found. We don't find anything, again and again. So we follow those pointing out instructions on mind and reality. For example, a famous pointing out instruction from the sutras, from the Mahayana sutras is, mind is like the sky, it's like space. Contemplate space and you will understand the nature of reality. And then we try to understand, we look very often into the sky, we maybe lie on, and we try until we capture maybe as a personal experience that no one can say where is the center of the sky, center of space. From which point of view should we define the center of space? Is it anywhere close to the Earth, or is it more close to another galaxy, or where is center of space? And we see that no need to define center of space. But if we don't have center, we don't have limits. Boundaries drop away. So slowly we begin to see, even we're not looking into space, mind is centerless, just like the sky space. And it's very fine like that. There's a sense of freedom. Every time with this pointing out instruction, there's a sense of freedom, of relief. Oh, no need to create a me which takes itself important. So we go our way like that until there happen moments of some astonishing moment, a gap, an opening, and they become stronger, and until we trust more in the experience of no self, no center, than in the projection of center. Because we notice that whenever the feeling, the sense of self is there, mind feels a little constricted, the heart feels a little constricted. Different from the moments of complete openness. So we prefer to be at ease, to be fluid. And we notice that a belief in a self limits the fluidity, creates blockages. That's why we prefer to enter the fluid, the spacious, dynamic awareness of non-fixation. And with these experiences starting in our practice begins a part of Vipassana practice which is now called remembering the view. We have an understanding of reality close to reality. We have glimpses of non-view, of centerless being, of timeless awareness, of being very well without reference points. And now, as we meditate, our main task begins to be to remember the view. Until then, the view which is a non-view, this is the idea. Until then, we were using these pointing out instructions, or we were using these Lakton questions, the inside questions: who is meditating? Where's the emotion? And so on. We were investigating reality in a more analytical way, looking and letting go into what we find. Looking and letting go. We were using this process. But now, this process has led so far that the initial glimpses of reality are occurring, and then we simply have to remember that and to trust that. And remembering the view equals remembering to let go completely. To become as vast as space. To be as vast as space. And then we see, oh, that's what I am, that's what is always there. I don't even have to become. That's how it is as soon as I relax. I don't even have to remember, just have to relax. So I'm not creating something. Remembering the view is not creating a view, it's remembering to be as simple as the awakened ones. And then meditation begins to be resting in the view. We call that the true Vipassana meditation. Insight meditation is to be the seeing. Not to search the seeing, this is the dualistic Vipassana practice trying to get there, but to stay in the seeing without center and without object, the seeing which knows, without conceptualizing. So that's called abiding in just so, how it is, suchness. The abiding nature, free of any identification. So we rest in the view, we stay, we open up to it again and again, to the way awakened ones, those who have become completely clear, have awakened from the sleep of ignorance, of lack of awareness, how they experience reality. And then comes the last step of Vipassana practice, which is entering activity. It does not stay in meditation. We talk now about post-meditation or post-attainment, post-absorption. We enter from a more passive staying in openness. We enter the interaction with the universe without creating a new center, without engaging in separations. So that's awakened activity. Remaining in the view, knowing, remaining in the seeing of the illusory nature of the words, the so-called entities, the so-called self of myself, the so-called self of yourself, the so-called emotions, and seeing that all of this is processed, none of it has substance, including the material objects, everything processed, depending on conditions. And so it's a fluid mind stream, a mind stream, nothing solid there, a fluid awareness, very flexible, very supple. This supple awareness interacting with other streams of awareness and the energies of this universe. And that's awakened activity. And it does not need to have a plan, this awakened activity. It is because it is itself completely relaxed and knows that this stream of awareness, this stream of mind, experiences tension and stress as soon as there's grasping and solidification. So the relaxed awareness will naturally, by itself, be perceived by others as lovingly, compassionately, in a wise way, encouraging everyone to also enter those fluid states of being, of interacting, not solidifying, not being opinionated, not clinging to ideas. So that's the awakened activity, which is Vipassana activity. It's activity never leaving the seeing, the insight, staying in the view. With these words of explanation, you will find it a little bit easier to study this chapter, which is very demanding. I've explained it in detail in the audios, which are at your disposition. But remember this overview. Like this, you will see that insight meditation is your best friend. There is nothing better than that. And every little bit of understanding reality more will actually encourage you to simply be and not struggle in your meditation.